What makes me so sad is moving forward, the conversation, the decision will no longer be, do I want to lose weight or do I want to stay fat and unhealthy, to put it bluntly. It is now, I want to lose weight. Do I want to do it this way or that way?
All right, Clayton. I've been looking forward to this. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into it.
I really enjoy your content. It's great to see wellness advice, good wellness advice, in between all the social media brain rot in our feeds.
Yeah, that's actually, you saying that is the exact reason I started posting 5 years ago. Wow. No, I'll get into it. So I remember I saw this post of this dude who's probably some sort of college athlete and had knee pain. And he's like, oh, here's what you do. And he like riddled off some stuff that was like, that might help, might not. And I was like, well, if he has 150,000 followers off this kind of content, I should probably be a good voice. And so I started posting, and the rest was history. Here we are now.
Wow. You know, in an age when nobody can agree on anything, you're really sticking your neck out there posting, especially medical advice. Mm-hmm. How do you go about putting yourself out there in a way where you can get some backlash? Do you ever think about that, or how do you handle that?
So far, I haven't had a whole lot. I think because the way I post it is usually just, I hope this helps. Like, hey, here's some stuff that you can do. It's never really making any like absolute statements. It's not ever really bashing others necessarily. It's just information that can really only usually be used for positive. And at worst, people are like, I tried this and it didn't work. And I'm like, okay. Like, that's usually the extent of negativity, except for when I started posting YouTube shorts, which is in the last month. And I actually like made a TikTok over the comment I got. It's just like, people will say the craziest things. Like, TikTok, super friendly. At least the people that are in their algorithm that have me, super friendly. Instagram, pretty chill. Facebook, also solid. YouTube, like, just super rude. Like, I was doing this pull-up thing that I thought looked cool. And I was essentially doing like, I would pull up to one side and then pull up to the other. I called it like the swing pull-up. And this guy's like, if you would stop doing that swinging crap, you could do a real pull-up. Get serious. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can I DM you and get a picture? This is amazing. Like, totally trying to mock him. He's like, I can do 9. And I'm like, okay. And it's just like, I don't know. That's about the extent of negative backlash I've gotten. Ultimately, when you post stuff that is just research-backed, here's some things that I think will help. Here's advice I gave a patient today. There's not much to fight about there, at least in my experience. And so it's really not been too bad in my, like with what I've posted ultimately.
Unless your last name is Sackler, I think everyone agrees the healthcare system is broken.
What is Sackler? I don't even know if I know what that
is. They own Purdue Pharma.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they the main ones that did the Netflix opioid crisis? Was it Purdue?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
They are behind it.
That was atrocious.
Yeah, they are behind the opioid crisis. You know, it's overly focused on profit-driven solutions to help people just enough, but keep them coming back. Mm-hmm. How do we even begin to try to break this cycle?
So there's a quote I heard a long time ago, and then I heard it again from another guy, and I don't remember the exact quote, but the premise of it was, if the system is broken so badly that it's unfixable, then you must build a new system to make the old one obsolete. And I really feel like that's the way we have to go. The guy that I just heard, his name's Asia. It's spelled A-S-H-A. He is a retired transplant surgeon that is building an AI, almost, I don't want to call it a chatbot, but an AI thing that if you have some sort of issue, you can download his app. It's called Primary Intelligence. And it's supposed to kind of act like a PCP. You essentially say, hey, I have blank, blank, blank. It'll ask you some questions. And then at the end, it says, I am no way diagnosing you, but when you go to your primary care provider, here are some things that I think you may have that you should ask about. So if anything, it helps you show up in your primary care physician's office a little bit more educated, so that, unfortunately, I think on average, people spend between 2 and 3 minutes with their primary care provider. It helps you come in a little bit more equipped and knowledgeable on what questions to ask and what potential diagnoses you may have. And he said that quote in one of his videos. And so I reached out to him and we've been chatting a little bit. And I think the worse it gets, the more that people who would usually sit on the sidelines are starting to come out of the woodworks and say, I'm going to post about this. I'm going to write about this. I'm going to email about this. I'm going to go write to Congress. I'm going to quit this job and start a new business to fix this issue. And so I think as that ball swings to just keep getting worse, hopefully people can build things that are better And then I think at the end of it, though, it has to be the consumers that shift their spending to those businesses so that money comes out of the profit driven stuff and money can go into that doctor down the street that you really like and that you want it to be seen by him or her as opposed to like just another like make a corporation medicine kind of thing. I think that's the ultimate way forward. And I feel the shift because our clinic doesn't accept insurance, our physical therapy clinic. And for a while we were one of 2 in Wichita. I think there's like 7 or 8 now. And that's just in the last 5 years. And Wichita, of course, as we know, is usually quite behind the 8 ball on things. And so it's coming in the physical therapy world, in the regular medicine world. And I've even heard specialties like dermatology, cardiovascular, and that kind of stuff is starting to pull away from using insurance just because it allows them to put the patient first.
Is that why you don't take insurance?
Yeah, 100%. So I've actually I did work at Wesley Rehab for a while, but I've primarily only worked in a cash-based or a fee-for-service or a non-in-network clinic. But when I went through school, you would see in these local clinics that are more corporate ran, we call them PT mills because you just like are getting as many people through the door as possible. There's times where they have to put caps where PTs are only evaling 7 or 10 people a week to where like we're happy to have 7 evals in a week. Meanwhile, they'll get 2 or 3 evals a day. They'll see 15, 20, 30 patients a day, and that's within an 8-hour shift. So if you do the math, it's like 2 or 3 people per hour. It's mind-boggling. Like imagine if you expected a psychotherapist, like a counselor, to see 20 people in a day. Like you would never demand that of them. Like physical therapy is not that much different in regards of what we require with time and education on patients. And so seeing that system and seeing it not work, and then Medicare cuts reimbursement, meaning AKA how much they pay, down and down and down and down, you have to start ramping up volume. And then we're like, yeah, we're not going to play that game. We're just going to like do our own thing in regards of putting the patient first. They pay us for the service. We provide the service. That's the end of it. It's very cut and dry and very simple.
It's crazy how for-profit medical is. You think the whole medical industry, you think it's to help other human beings, but it's so nasty and so for-profit.
It is. And what sucks is the doctors are literally, they're essentially the vehicle that is not within their control. Like when you start finding out, there's a dentist that is very popular on TikTok, super cool guy. And he's like, he's very, very funny too. He's like, okay, so let's say you have Smith Dentistry down the street. It's owned by John Smith, right? Well, what will happen is a corporate company will come in what do they call it? Private equity. Like a company like that just buys businesses and rolls them up will come in and buy it, essentially give them a price that you cannot turn down. And I don't know always if the local doctor knows that this is kind of what's going to happen or if they almost bait and switch them. But they will come in and they'll buy that dentistry clinic. It'll now be owned by a private equity, still called Smith Dentistry, still looks like your local mom and pop dentistry like place. But now he doesn't really get to make the decisions because ultimately the corporation that owns him says, hey, you need to start seeing more patients. We need to get this much higher profit, yada, yada, yada. And you think you're going in to see this dentist, which you are, but unfortunately he becomes the puppet, he or she becomes the puppet for like the for-profit thing above them. Otherwise they don't have a job anymore because they're held via contract. And so you have this medical license, unfortunately, that's almost held hostage, but we trust the person with the license, but the person with the license is being dictated or ruled or told what to do and say, maybe not verbatim, but like, here's how you're going to kind of operate. Otherwise you lose your job. And that's how it kind of ends up going. And that goes with primary care physicians and kind of on up the chain when you talk about corporations. And so it's very frustrating because a lot of people will blame the doctors. I don't trust my doctor. My doctor just wants to do this. And it's like, your doctor's trying to make a living. Because the guy that I just interviewed earlier this week had $250,000 in debt when he graduated medical school. And when you have that much debt and you're happy to make $200,000 or $300,000 a year, which is a lot of money, but the only way to make that much money is to do what they say. Otherwise, you're kind of done for. Your options are limited, unfortunately, and it can be very scary going out on your own and trying to build something on your own and not take that money, unfortunately.
When it comes to buying up businesses, like you said, it sounds like a BlackRock type deal. How they buy up single family homes. They make a cash offer that a family just can't match.
Yeah, and I think
so nasty.
I think too, what I've learned is laws are only written when they need to be written. And so I remember there's this crazy Netflix, it was called like Who's Your Father or Not Your Father. It was that medical doctor who was doing in vitro, and he was actually using his own sperm
Saw that.
to impregnate these ladies. And I come to find out, like, the ones who had actually like talked, he had over like 70 children, debatably more, right? Because all of these people assume that this child is mine, but is actually like the doctor's with my wife's. And it's like, what? Technically at the time, he didn't break any laws because there was no law against that, because there never had to be a law against it, right? And then there was one time I got pulled over for texting and driving out a red light. But anyway, apparently that's illegal. I found that out. He wrote me a warning, but a buddy of mine was like, he's like, what law did he like actually put that under? And it was driving while engaging in other activities. So you start to learn that the law itself, and I'm in no way a lawyer, but what I've learned from like paying attention to these things is like doing something that is clearly wrong still has to fall under some sort of like written thing. And because that guy didn't, the guy who was using his own sperm, there was no law for it. There was no law to break. Now they still got him, and then they rewrote a whole new law based off that thing. But taking this all the way back to where we started with the BlackRock, I don't think companies 50 years ago had the ability to go this like meta with owning all of these companies or buying all these houses. So it's like all they are is just like way ahead of the law before the laws get written. And then when you have that much money, I think it's pretty possible to sway whether or not a law is written. And so I think that's what's kind of coming back, because I'm pretty sure it just got passed where like something to do with single family homes can no longer be purchased by corporations, something like that. And so it's like, I think we're seeing the problem and we're trying to go catch it, but we can't write the laws faster than the companies find those loopholes and then exploit them.
We're always reactive before being proactive.
Yeah. And so the same thing has happened with medicine. You just start seeing these huge companies have so much money that they're like, we can take 10% of that industry. Let's go for it. And then they do.
Right. And you saying that you see your primary care doctor 2 to 3 minutes? Is that what you said?
Yeah, on average. And I think it's 17 seconds or something like that before you're interrupted on average.
I mean, how crazy is that? You know,
I know.
You can barely trust that they diagnose your current issue, let alone be proactive in anything.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I mean, that's honestly what you just said is exactly it. Like, they have to turn into an algorithm where you're like, yeah, I've just been a little bit sad. And they're like, okay, here's an SSRI.
Right.
And you're like, what? It's like, well, like if you'd ask the person why they were sad, they lost their cat 5 days ago. You should be sad. Like, that doesn't mean you are depressed, and that doesn't mean you need a medication for it. But when you're forced to operate within a 2 to 3 minute window, 5 at best, you do the best you can. And again, I want to make sure that for the most part, like the vast majority of doctors are essentially the victims in this, and then they're supposed to do the best they can with what they're confined to. I'm pretty sure they can see anywhere from 70 to 100 patients a day. I mean, that's just a significant amount of people. Wow. And so you do the best you can, ultimately. I get mad if I can't see somebody for at least 30 minutes, you know? Like,
right.
And then they're dealing with something more complex. I tell people, cut them a little bit of slack, because if us 3 go into the clinic, you may show up with like a stomach bug. You may show up with a cut on your hand that's starting to turn some weird colors. And then I show up with shoulder pain. Those are 3 very different things, and you're asking the same person to diagnose all 3 of us. Like, they can only go do so well, which is often why they refer out, or they just try to give you the next thing to make you feel better to get on to the next patient, because, again, the system that they're in, that's where I would put the blame.
Wow. I didn't even think about doctors seeing that many people in a day.
Mm-hmm.
God.
I'm slammed when I see 9 people in a day. Like, I'm exhausted.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just completely broken.
Yeah.
Completely broken.
And so when you start to find providers that do it in a way that you feel like is best, or you find a provider that you really like, that you're like, wow, he's actually sat and listened to me. Like, make sure you stick with him, and make sure you recommend that. I keep saying him, but him or her, make sure you recommend that person to as many people as possible and help that person's business grow. Because that's how we're going to like essentially like defeat the beast, like one little tiny bite at a time, ultimately, and start supporting those businesses.
It's a great point. There's never been a free pass to weight loss. It's always been hard work, lifestyle changes, until now, apparently, with Ozempic. I'm always worried when it comes to these drug companies, because their goal is not to get you healthy, it's to make you a lifelong customer and maximize their profits. What are your thoughts on Ozempic?
All right. So I have so many thoughts on this. And I think what it would boil down to, when I was talking to a friend of mine on it, I said, what makes me so sad is moving forward, the conversation, the decision will no longer be, do I want to lose weight or do I want to stay fat and unhealthy, to put it bluntly. It is now, I want to lose weight. Do I want to do it this way or that way? Right. And I know like they did a research study that if there was a Coca-Cola vending machine, it would sell like 200 cans a day. If they put a Pepsi one next to it, they would both sell 200 a day, because people no longer thought, do I want soda? They said, do I want Pepsi or Coke? It changes the conversation. And so now at least people are taking that thought of, well, hey, let's go and lose weight and get healthy. But who the hell is going to choose the hard way? The way that actually is like meant to be done. That's what frustrates me so much. Now, I know some people will say obesity is a disease, and I am not a medical provider in the sense of a physician to truly make that call, but I would argue that it's not. I would argue that the vast majority of people who are overweight or obese made lifestyle choices or were taught lifestyle choices by their family members in the culture within their own home that has just been taken so far that they've become obese. And I think my favorite thing that I've probably told at least one person today since I listened to it was the Jelly Roll podcast with Joe Rogan, because you have someone who is 520 pounds, like just significantly overweight, like debatably the same weight as us three combined, right? And as he started losing the weight, he said that one of his doctors suggested a GLP-1 and said, hey, do you want to do this? He said, let me think about it. Called a bunch of friends. They said, hey, we lose weight, but our stomachs are destroyed. Like our stomachs are not working. They're upset all the time. And he said, I don't want any part of that. And what he had found is the thing that really helped him lose the weight was finding out why he overeats in the first place. And it was going and healing that. And it was actually a conversation with a counselor or a therapist who talked him through, like, what are you trying to do when you go overeat? Like when you walk into the pantry, who are you feeding? Like, what are you trying to do here? And I've observed the same thing in me. Like I always will tend to like chips in particular is like my guilty pleasure, where it's like I can plow a bag of Doritos and still be hungry for dinner. And every time he walked into that pantry, he would ask himself, like, what am I trying to solve? Like, what am I trying to numb right now? And so him and his wife, and I believe like his daughter or something, like clear the pantry. And every time he walked in, he almost had like a mini therapy session of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And that right there is the essence of how you actually solve obesity. Now I will say caloric deficit and moving more. So the whole eat less and move more. It works most of the time. But unfortunately, when you get unhealthy to a point that your normal metabolic processes no longer work, your liver's not processing like it should, your metabolism is off, your insulin is like all over the place, hormones are out of whack, whether it be due to chronically undereating, chronically overeating, not sleeping enough, whatever that may be. Sometimes the calories and like the classic thermodynamic math just doesn't work. If you've tried something consistently and you've been honest with yourself and it's not working after 2 or 3 months, consult with a physician. Say, hey, can I get some blood labs? Like, what is my inflammatory markers, which is generally like your CRP, C-reactive protein? What is my insulin levels? What is my resting glucose? Like, what is my what does my blood pressure look like? You start to look under the hood and say, why is the normal processes not working for me? And hopefully, again, this goes back to what we talked about before. They will probably run a CMC and a CMP and a CBC, which is your regular blood panels, and they may catch something, they may not. But usually to go a step farther, it costs quite a bit of money because labs can be quite expensive. And if they're not covered by insurance, you're looking at out of pocket. Again, then people have the decision of, do I want to spend the money on this? Which is a whole nother frustration. But I think what frustrates me is, again, it's now, do you just want to take the shot for $100, $200, $300 a month? Or do you want to like put in the work of lifestyle change? And I'm really fearful that as we get through this fad of very high rapid increase in using these, that people like me are going to have to deal with patients who are now what's called sarcopenic, where they've actually lost a significant amount of muscle. I'm actually going through a weight loss right now, trying to cut some fat off me. And as I'm going and eating in a caloric deficit and working out a little bit more and changing my lifestyle a little bit, 10 to 20% of the weight that I lose should be muscle. It's almost impossible not to, as you're losing weight. They've done studies and they found that some of these people, when they lose weight, are losing 60 to 70% of the weight lost is muscle.
Whoa.
And so if you're losing 100 pounds, like 50 pounds of that may be your muscle. So then you have this person who's...
You're talking about people on Ozempic?
Yes. Ozempic, Wegovy, all of those. Those GLP-1 inhibitors. Because you have this person who is normally eating 3,000 to 6,000 calories a day, because that's usually what it takes to get overweight and then obese and then morbidly obese. And you're essentially like hacking their system to where their body is now okay with, mentally, they're okay with not eating but 1,000 to 2,000 calories. If you know anybody who's on it, they will eat like a half of a hamburger and they're like, I am stuffed. And it's because like their body's telling them they're full. So now they went from malnutrition in the overconsumption to malnutrition in the underconsumption. And when you cut calories that fast, your body's going to start like, yes, getting rid of weight. Unfortunately, it's getting rid of any weight. It's burning whatever it can for energy. And unfortunately, then you have the Ozempic butt, the Ozempic face. You have this stretched out skin that's shrinking so fast that it can't adapt. So people get saggy skin, whether it be on their face, their butt, their stomach, for females, their boobs, anywhere. And unfortunately, a ton of muscle has went away. Damn. And so now, I know you had some interest on dementia. You're starting to think, okay, now what does that 30-year-old look like when they're 60? Because all the muscle that they've worked for, whether it just be like carrying around a ton of weight, doing a little bit of weightlifting in high school, like whatever, I mean, they just like shrank that right back down. So that's what's got me fearful on the GLP-1s is what does 10 years from now look like?
Right.
Whether they're on it or not. Like when you like suck down that muscle loss, it's hard. Like if you guys have ever been through an ACL surgery or any sort of surgery where you're like looking at your left leg, looking at your right leg, and they're like, that one's a lot smaller. It's like, good luck getting that back. It's possible, but it takes a ton of work. And that's just for that one leg to match the one that stayed strong. Like imagine that full body, full system.
Yeah, it's crazy how easily they push those like Ozempic, those drugs through without having really any idea what the long-term, effects could be. Maybe there are none, but they have no idea.
Well, and that's where I actually looked up. And so sarcopenia, there's not been any research to say that that's going to happen just yet. I just don't think the research is caught up personally. I think it'll take a little bit too long. Like it's a process that just is going to take 6 months, a year, 2 years, and you're going to have all the people signed up to go through that research. A huge one in regards to side effects is stomach issues. And even, I think they call it gastroparesis, which is where the stomach actually like stops working. And so food that usually comes in the stomach and leaves the stomach is like going into the stomach and like staying there because like you've slowed down the process so much that it just stops. Some people are having GI obstructions where essentially the food, again, stops and it no longer moves. Gallbladder issues is really high. Somebody that I know went on one of them. I don't remember which one, but she had to get her gallbladder removed about 2 years after because it stopped working correctly. And while I was researching this to see what all research there is on the side effects, there's actually been incidences of higher rates of depression and suicidality, which I think is really interesting. I've not heard of that among any of like peers or social media and stuff, but that is another one that is of concern. And so again, are you just trading one problem for another?
That's part of the commercial where they talk really fast.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Or it's written at the bottom, which they've actually changed some laws. They have to
text.
talk slower. Like they're only allowed to go so fast. Oh, really? Now. Yeah. I think my biggest thing too is less about the doctor saying you should do it, which to me sometimes is an irritation, but it's all these weight loss clinics that pop up, and all they're doing is, it's just another cash grab under somebody's medical license that they're just like, hey, come here, you can get the shot, $100 a month. And then there's companies being built on it, where it's like, did we just completely circumnavigate the true medical system and now we're just buying direct drugs on our own because we want to be skinnier?
Right.
That's the other thing that's wild.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that are doing both. They're taking Ozempic and they're also making lifestyle changes. I feel like Ozempic, if you start with Ozempic to kickstart your weight loss, kickstart your metabolism, then maybe wean off of it. I wonder how many people are doing that and what the success rate is. So
there's actually a clinic here in Wichita that does it, where they were not going to offer any of those because the two doctors there, along with their CEO, was like, they're more of a cash-based clinic. They don't take insurance. And they were like, we don't know if we fully believe in this. We don't know if this is what we want to do yet. There's not enough research behind it. And as more and more patients were essentially showing up and asking for it or asking questions about it, they were like, all right, well, if you ever buy into the whole idea of if you don't legalize it, you can't regulate it. If we don't start doing this for people, they will go somewhere else, right? Because marketing, some people are really good at marketing. And so they'll just go find it somewhere else. So we might as well be the ones to do it with them, but create a protocol. And so I don't know their exact protocol that they'll do, but when you come in, they'll do the classic intake and everything and physical and stuff. But then you have to go through 8 weeks of essentially weekly nutrition consulting. They will get you linked up with some sort of a trainer or make sure you're adhering to some sort of strength training program at 3 times a week. And you get weekly scans. They used to do an in-body scan. Now they do a STIKU scan, which is an infrared scan. It essentially creates a 3D map of your body and then tells you how much muscle mass you likely have, how much fat mass you likely have based on your weight. And then they check you every week. And if you're losing muscle too fast, if you're losing weight too fast, and you're not making the lifestyle choices that they're trying to reinforce with you, then they just kick you out. No, I don't know if they kick you out, but they essentially have another intervention like, hey, are you going to make these lifestyle changes? Because I agree with you. And I think if that's the way it was ultimately sold, is here is going to be a jump start, because I acknowledge that when you're 400 pounds, that's quite a bit of momentum to work against, right? I totally get that. If you can use it there and then, like you said, wean back off and say, okay, here's your new lifestyle, I'm all for it. 100% down for it, right? It's a tool. It's not the solution. If we can do it that way, 100% for it. Don't know many people doing it that way. Just from my experience, I would say it seems like 20% of people are doing it that way. And unfortunately, that's not how it's getting marketed and sold, is what it seems.
I caught a clip from your latest podcast. At least I think it was your latest podcast. Talk about glyphosate.
Yeah.
So with us being in Kansas, there's a lot of farmland, and it's frequently used in the state, used in Roundup. You know, how do we mitigate our exposure to glyphosate, and why are the levels so high around golf courses? That seems to be the new thing.
Yeah. So I don't know a ton about that one, to be honest with you. I would say if you want more information on that, I do think the Reardon Clinic, which is who I interviewed, would be the best place to go looking for and ask that, or even just any sort of functional medicine doctor who's going to look into that. I know on my own, my wife and I were looking stuff up because my daughter has asthma, and so we were trying to figure out what's the irritant, like what's causing these exacerbations. And we landed on, for her in specific, fragrances, which is kind of humorous because it's literally... Fragrances are like only there to make things smell good because we want them to smell good. And they
Like candles?
Candles, sprayers, the little plug-ins on the side, car air fresheners. Like, it's literally... At one point in time, they had trouble selling them, and then they realized that after you clean, if you spray Febreze, because I'm pretty sure Febreze is the one who led it, it made people feel more satisfied, like they cleaned their house. Because, like, look, I cleaned and I made it smell good to verify that I cleaned. And then that's what, like, really ramped up sales for them. And I don't see any other positive benefits other than it smells good. And it seems to be like we're really finding out there's a bunch of negatives. And so I think that opened my eyes to, you know, what else potentially harming my daughter. And my wife ended up coming across that anybody within like a 2-mile radius of a golf course has like a significantly higher chance of lung cancer. And it goes down to the chemicals in which they spray to make it pretty, type of thing. And unfortunately, you can't really keep that too well controlled. And then this is me putting on a tinfoil hat, but I'm also curious, like, are some of those numbers never going to be seen because golf courses are always in like rich neighborhoods, and rich neighborhoods are generally older people who are subscribing to the country club. So it's like, they don't have enough life to like see any of that. I don't know. But yeah, I would say I would defer that to a medical provider, generally a physician, and someone who has done more research into it. But the glyphosate definitely like piques my interest, and it makes me wonder if that's a piece of the food supply that is harming us more than helping us in the long term.
Have you done any research into fasting?
Not enough to have an opinion on it from like a medical perspective. I know one big thing on fasting that people will sell is apoptosis, which is like essentially your bad cells like killing themselves, and so that they're gone, and so that the new cells that are like stronger can be there. Just like one bout of exercise actually has more apoptosis and like cellular debris death than any sort of fasting generally. And so that's something that you guys will slowly get from me, is that exercise really does seem to be the solve all. It generally enhances almost everything, and generally it works better than any other supplement that you could look for, whether it be fasting or something else. I do think fasting can be very, very helpful for people. I've actually considered it during my weight loss journey to like do one 36-hour fast per week. So like eat dinner on Monday night, don't eat at all on Tuesday, and then break my fast Wednesday morning, just as a way of honestly some mental toughness, but then also there's 2,000 calories in my week that I can help with the weight loss. As of right now, things are going smooth, so I probably won't. But there is a book called, I think, Fast Like a Girl, something like that one of my coworkers read that she really liked. And it talks about the benefits of fasting, the different lengths of fasting, how it can be helpful, but it writes it more specifically for women, because guys, other than us getting older, like our 20-year-old body and our 40-year-old body aren't too much different. A female is different every week of the month, let alone pre-puberty, post-puberty, essentially like menopause, perimenopause, like there's way more science that's going to go into that. And so fasting can be much more stressful. And so that book does a good job talking about fasting, but specifically around women.
That's so great about exercise because everybody has access to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would fully agree. And it humors me because they just came out with the nutritional guidelines, right? They redid the food pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the medical providers that I follow almost like laugh at the fact that they did it just because nobody was following it in the first place. And they theorize that the food pyramid, the way it was written, wasn't even causing any of the problem. And that opened my eyes because they were like, and plus nobody's following the exercise guidelines either. And I was like, yeah, that's actually pretty true. And so if you were to look up the exercise guidelines, the goal is 150 minutes of moderate activity per week, which is 15 minutes. Well, that'd be times 10. I don't remember the math, but it's 150 of moderate per week, or 75 minutes.
Seems very reasonable.
It is. 75 minutes of vigorous activity. So we're thinking like really hard CrossFit, some sort of sprinting, like really hard biking, something that your heart rate gets up quite high. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to look into it for yourself, there's certain heart rate zones that would kind of like help you fall into the vigorous or moderate. But I can't help but wonder if you were to take a sample, 100 people that represented all of America, the healthiest to the unhealthiest, and you had 100 people, and you said, okay, all of you are going to subscribe to 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week for the next 8 weeks. How much would their blood labs get better? How much would their sleep get better? How much of them would lose weight? That's what I would want to see take place. And I think that's where we really need to put our efforts. But unfortunately, that's not something you can sell to someone. That's asking them to put in work. That's asking them to change their lifestyle. And I think that's what makes it not sexy and not sold ultimately. But I agree. Yeah, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Food pyramid. Completely forgot about the food pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the old food pyramid, like the one that they were giving us back when we were in school.
Yes, and it actually switched to my plate. And so if you're going to pull some stuff up, start with the food pyramid that they referenced when they redid it in the last 6 months or whatever. But I think my plate was the one that was more recent, where they show like a circle plate, and it's like, you should have this much of this food, this much of this food, kind of thing. And it's humorous because although I do know those guidelines can have sway from certain financial incentives, like, does anybody actually follow it anyway? Like, I know we want to blame it, and I like to blame things too, but like, if this is supposed to be your plate, did you have dairy with every meal?
No.
Did you ever eat fruits or vegetables? Like, I'm not trying to call you guys out specifically, right? But most people are not following it in the first place.
Right.
And then I do know that, like, the quote new food pyramid is they flipped it upside down to where it's like really protein focused, and much less on the grains, which I will 100% subscribe to. I would say my normal nutrition advice for most of my patients is, what is your ideal body weight? So if you're 200 pounds and you want to get down to 150 pounds, then we're going to go off that 150 number, as long as that actually like works okay. And I would say I would want you to eat about 150 grams of protein per day, and then shoot for 20 to 30 grams of fiber per day. Now, for a lot of people, 150 grams can sound insane. And so if you look on the back of a food label, I'm pretty sure the numbers that they'll give you, it's all based on 2,000 calories per day. And then it'll say like, oh, 10 grams of protein is a certain percentage of your daily value. That's going off about like a 30% ratio. Let me see if I can clear this up. So if you're 150 pounds, they found that if you want to make sure you don't lose muscle, like you're almost not under eating, you need to eat 30% of your body weight in grams of protein. So 30% of 150 is going to be 45 grams. So like never eat less than 45 grams of protein in a day. If you want to be like more optimal, like just your average person, like, hey,
how much is 45 grams of protein?
Good question.
Like
4 ounces of chicken, which is
breast?
about the palm size of your hand. 4 ounces of chicken is going to be about 25 to 30 grams of protein. And so your traditional Fairlife shake, those are generally about 30 grams. 4 ounces of almost any lean meat will get you somewhere between 20 and 30 grams of protein. And so if you eat like a quarter pound of hamburger, that would be 4 ounces. You eat that, you'll probably get 20, 30 grams of protein. And so that would be like one meal. And so if you eat much protein at all at a meal, you should be able to hit 45 in a day. Like I do that for lunch.
God, that's crazy how much protein's in like ground beef and chicken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if you just eat lean meats, honestly, like go to 200 years ago, what food did we have available? We had animals, and then we had fruits and veggies. And like, I'm not trying to go like all the way back to like paleo type diet, but my point being is just think about what we had access to back then, and that would probably suffice pretty decently. And so the 30% is like never go below. 50% will cover most people. So 150-pound person, hit 75 grams of protein in a day, you're probably doing good. If you are trying to rehab an injury, or you're trying to heal tissue, or you are trying to build muscle, you absolutely need more than that. And I would say 70% to 100% of your body weight. And so again, 150-pound person, up to 150 grams, 3/4 of that would be 75 times 1, 37 and a half, 115 grams of protein-ish. So 115 to 150, shoot for that. What this does though, is it reframes your perspective. So you're like, okay, well, if I need to hit 120 grams of protein, divide that by 3, I need 40 grams per meal. Okay. So then on that my plate thing, I need 40 grams of protein out of my plate. So let's start there. So like I had Taco Bell right before I came. So I was on the app, 1, looking at cost, but 2, looking at like protein per calorie. And so I got their 5-piece nugget, which I don't remember all the numbers, but I got their 5-piece nugget, which was a good chunk of protein for not too many calories. And then I got their chicken melt, which is the same thing. 700 calories, that was about 50 grams of protein, which is actually like really solid for fast food. And so that's how I operate my meals. And that's how I would suggest my patients or whoever's listening to operate, is like shoot for that 30 to 50 gram of protein per meal, 20 to 30 if you're a smaller female and not needing a ton of like muscle growth. If you aim for that, it starts to force you to cut out like processed foods that you're going to overeat. Because if you're trying to stay within a good calorie count and hit protein, you don't have the hunger, or you don't have the availability to go overeat the half a bag of Doritos like I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that as well. Talk to me about the 4 pillars of health.
Yeah. So you guys asked a little while ago on like what all do I cover with the patient when it comes to physical therapy. And pretty quickly after we get their like irritation or pain diagnosed, it's how are you doing in like we call it like movement vital signs, or the 4 pillars. Because if you have someone who's not doing well on these 4 pillars of health, like they're not, like if we gave them a grade and they were doing like a C across the board, they are going to heal slower than somebody who has an A across the board. So you're limited by essentially how healthy you're living. And so the 4 pillars are sleep, hydration, nutrition, and stress management. At times I'll add the 5th and say exercise. Like, are you exercising? What is your form of exercise? That kind of thing. Stress management, we usually discuss a little bit, because sometimes when people are under a lot of stress, whether it be work, spouse, family, a death, or something like that, their body will actually like tense up. You'll hold tension because you're kind of like constantly worried about something. Honestly, think about the last time you watched a scary movie and things got really scary, and then it kind of like relaxes for a little bit. You feel your body kind of melt back into the couch. That stress that you're holding during the scary part, that's how some people are living all day, every day. And then they question why they have musculoskeletal pain in their shoulders, pain in their back, pain in their hip. So that's where the stress management comes into the PT side of things. If I think it's above my pay grade or out of my scope, I will refer them out. But we at least have that discussion so they understand that stress can play a part in their pain, especially if it's chronic and ongoing. Hydration, I usually just tell people, make sure you're drinking enough water. If they do want numbers, I'll say half your body weight in ounces, or about 90 to 100 ounces of water, depending on which one's higher ultimately. Again, this is all still relative. So if you're drinking 60 ounces of water and you have no signs of dehydration, you're probably fine. If you're drinking 60 ounces of water, you're a CrossFitter who works out an hour and a half a day and you're just dumping sweat, you are probably having some issues because you're getting rid of a lot of fluids. You should be consuming more. Nutrition, we already kind of covered. I'll usually just ask people what they're eating. Sometimes I'll have them write down what they eat 48 hours in a row. Just give me an idea. The amount of females that average 900 to 1,200 calories a day have for a long time. And then they wonder why they get sick, why they can't sleep, why they have pain all the time. It's like, well, here it is. I need you to eat a little bit more. We'll have that conversation. And then sleep. Sleep is the last one. Sleep is the most, quote, slept on supplement. That's where your body does all its healing, whether it be creating new neural pathways. I can't remember what they call it. I think it's like pruning, getting rid of neural pathways that you don't need anymore or don't use anymore. That's where most of your muscle building comes from. And if you don't have good sleep, there is a significant amount of studies showing that your ability to have good willpower the next day against cravings and things like that goes way down. And so you're more likely to overeat. You're more likely to eat poor foods, all that kind of stuff, if your sleep is not good. And so we usually cover those 4 things. And most of the time, if I have somebody who's not healing as fast as I feel like they should, most of the times they're really low on one of those, and it's like, cool, we need to go fix this, and then that'll allow your hip to finally heal up like we want it to.
I was going to say, do you think for the most part, everybody needs about the same amount of sleep? Because you sometimes hear people that don't sleep very much and they seem to be doing fine. Do you think there's a bill that comes due eventually for people like that? Or do you think everyone's kind of different in that way?
So I have my own experience with this. I do think more people should subscribe to the 7 to 9 hours per night. I just think it's glamorized to do more and more and more in the day and be like, oh, I'll sleep later. I do think there's times where if you're trying to get a business off the ground, you have a child who's waking up 3 times a night. There's times where humans can be very resilient and survive with little to no sleep. But I know when I was in college, 18 to 20 years old, I would probably sleep anywhere from, I probably went to bed between 12 and 1 a.m., 12 and 2 a.m. We'll just say 1, and I would wake up at like 6:45. So I was getting about 5 to 6 hours, more on the 5 side probably. And I remember thinking like, oh, this isn't too bad. And my wife, who I was dating at the time, would tell me all these dreams that she would have at night. And I'm like, man, I haven't dreamed since like I was 10 years old. Like I don't even remember my dreams. And then I also remember anytime we watched a movie, within like 5 minutes of the movie coming on, I would crash. So it's like my body was hollering at me like, dude, you want some sleep? Ultimately. And it's also interesting because sometimes when you're underslept, you're like more hyperactive. So it almost feels like you have all this energy. You're like jittery, but it's your body's way of saying like, dude, we need to crash. Like we need to sleep. And so I've lived like that for years and I thought it was fine. And then as I started sleeping more, I started going to bed at 11 instead of midnight, and then 10 instead of 11. Like dreams started coming back and I was like, oh, this is interesting. A little bit more like clarity came back into my brain where I could focus on things longer, stuff like that. And now I probably average 10 to 6:45. I'm probably just under 7 hours, and I know it. But I think there's that weird limbo. It's like those people who sleep like 5 hours are almost riding like fumes, and they think they're doing fine. But I do think there will be a bill that kind of comes later on.
Do you also think that the hours that you're getting the sleep matter?
Like
so
when you're sleeping?
Like if you're sleeping 6 hours a night, but you're sleeping from 10 to 4 versus midnight to 6. Do you think that matters?
I still think that may be person dependent, but I would have to say I think that matters at least some. It's hard because we have artificial light, like we're sitting under right now. Like it could be 2 a.m. right now. It could be 2 p.m. We don't know. Our bodies see light, so we think it's light time, like daytime. I was talking to my eye doctor on this actually, and him and I will just sit and shoot the shit for a long time. And he was like, oh, you'll find this interesting. There was a guy who, I don't remember if he was blind or went blind in his life. I think he went blind. He had an accident of some sort, and not much changed in his life in regards of like sleep cycles. However, they blindfolded him for 48 hours. Now, the guy could not see necessarily, but when they blindfolded him for 48 hours, his entire circadian rhythm went off. So they found that your eyes are more responsible than just vision. It also has light receptors. And so when they blindfolded him, his body, his brain, did not know what was day and what was night, because it didn't know when the sun was out. And so when you say, does it matter on the hours? I do think there's a reason that when it comes wintertime, we're naturally a little bit more tired and sluggish. It's because the night is longer. Our body responds purely off of the day. Like they even had one guy who slept in a cave for like a week or 2 weeks, and it was within like 2 nights. He had no idea what time it was. He would sleep for 2 hours thinking he slept for 12 hours. He would sleep for a long, long time and think he only slept a little. Like all time went away because there was no regulation of the sun and like waking up at a certain time. So I would put more stock in consistency than what hours you sleep. Like I would rather you sleep 12 to 6 every single night and never break from it, as opposed to being like, oh, I should be sleeping 10 to 4. Like I would care more about just consistency. And then also how good is your sleep? So what are you doing in the evening to wind down? What are you doing in the morning to essentially like wake yourself up? Like, are you seeing sunlight pretty quick after waking if it's out? Are you exercising in the morning? Because they found that morning exercise creates more efficient sleep than evening exercise. Again, I've done that too. When my daughters would go to bed, I'd go work out. I'd come home, plan to go to bed at 10 o'clock, and it was like I was wired until like 11:30. And so
just a more efficient day.
100%, yeah, because you get that out of the way and your body's like jazzed up in regards of like energy. And so, yeah, that's kind of my spiel on sleep in particular.
Man, God bless third shift workers.
There is tons of research that shows they are 100% dying faster Because,
I believe it.
because they're working third shift. Like our bodies are not made for that.
I believe it.
At all. So yes, God bless them because they make the world go round for us and they are truly sacrificing years off their life. Or less quality of life if it's the same amount of years. But yeah, there's a huge cost to it.
Whoa, what have you seen on that?
I don't remember specifics, but I just remember it's like across the board, like metabolic disorders are up. So meaning like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high, all of those things are generally like worse on those people. And then I want to say there is a little bit higher, like I'm not going to call it psychiatric disorders, but like depression and anxiety and all that kind of stuff kind of comes because you're working against nature in a way. Like we're supposed to be awake when it's light and asleep when it's dark.
Right.
And so like when you go and you're under lights all night long and then you go outside and it's daytime, your body's like, well, where the heck is night? Like we don't know when to sleep. So these people come home and they'll sleep 3 hours from 9 a.m. to noon and their family gets home and so they go do that. And it's like, there's no regularity. There's no consistency ultimately. And so it's just honestly bad news. So if you are a third shift worker, I would try to find something else or just acknowledge that hopefully this is a short stint or get super, super, super amazing blackout curtains so that you can convince your body it's nighttime when you come home and go to bed.
That's how you get sleep paralysis. Blake was telling me he worked third shift and sleep paralysis comes in. Have you ever gotten sleep paralysis?
I had a friend who had it more genetically. Like she had it in college and she had no other sleep issues, but she would have sleep paralysis. Did you have it or did you just know somebody?
I did not have it.
Okay.
Blake did.
Bro.
Yeah, he
I'm
had.
so sorry. She said it was the weirdest thing because you would like be awake, but you couldn't see anything because your eyes were closed and you're just like hearing everything going on, but you're like a prisoner in your own body. Mm-hmm. Not something I want to mess with.
We had a couple friends get sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
I've heard some pretty scary stories from them about what they thought they saw.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, not anything I want to be a part of.
Yeah, no, me neither.
No. For people who are like Troy and I, we stay active, we exercise, but we're getting older. We realize that. What would be your best tips and tricks to avoid injury as we continue to age?
One, I used to think that if you do everything right, nothing bad will happen in general. And I know that's naive to think. And what I've really found is injury is going to come, whether it's you just slipping and falling or whether it's you're going for a deadlift PR. And so I'm not saying that everybody's destined to have a certain number of injuries in their life. But if you can make sure that the injury is because you should have done 5 less pull-ups in your workout, as opposed to I slipped and fell on ice and broke my hip, I would take the pull-up problem ultimately. And so I think when it comes to this, it's going to go back to the 4 pillars. Like do everything everything you can to optimize. I call it like the second half of the equation. We work out to be healthy and to get strong. But we also require the recovery aspect. And I think recovery is another thing, just like wellness, that's oversold, overmarketed. And it's this whole industry of buy more of this supplement type of thing. When I talk about recovery, it's making sure you are providing your body enough nutrition to rebuild the tissue, making sure you are giving your body enough time to build the tissue, which is generally sleep and or time away from the gym. I remember I used this analogy with a patient because they were missing one of the links. I don't remember which one. But I was like, imagine that we want this building to be prettier, right? So we're going to renovate it. Well, with renovation, you have to start with demolition. We have to break down what we no longer want. That is exercise. If you want to bring in new material to build it, that would be eating. You have to eat food to build the material. But if you demo the building, you bring in a bunch of semis with all the lumber, and then you try to give the workers an hour a day to do it, it's going to take forever, if it's ever going to get done. That is you not sleeping. Like if you don't sleep and you don't eat and you don't do the exercise, then you're never going to get this renovation done. You're never going to build this muscle and make it grow. And so that's how all of this kind of comes into play. And then I would say like the stress management part is if you're highly stressed, then imagine trying to do all of this renovation while it's like raining or while it's snowing or it's really cold or it's stupid hot. Like it's a very stressful environment, so the body cannot do what it's supposed to. And I would say most injuries come when those things are out of balance. I don't remember the details in specific, but they found that if you sleep 5 or less hours per night within like 2 weeks, you can almost guarantee that person is going to get injured. And it's generally, they would say it's overuse, but I would say it's under recovered. You're essentially showing up at the gym or in life, if we don't want to talk about exercise specifically, you're showing up every day with a cup that is less full than the day before. And it's just a matter of time before something essentially gives. And so when it comes to how do I prevent injury, it's more of how do I reduce my chances on the podcast that I had with the Reardon Clinic guy. I told him, I said, I feel like injury, sickness, and disease, it's like a lottery that you don't want to win. You have to buy at least one ticket though, so the chance is always there. And if you make poor choices, you're unfortunately buying more tickets. So if you smoke a bunch, you're buying a ticket every time you smoke. If you choose to undersleep, you're probably buying tickets, right? And so you can buy 1 million lottery tickets and still lose the lottery in the sense of not win, not get the sickness, not pay the price. We all know people who are like, dude, you abuse your body, but my loved one did everything right and they died. Why are you not dying? Not that you wish death, right? But like you look up to God and you're like, dude, this isn't fair. Right. And so that's the way I like make it make sense in my own brain, where it's like, everybody's got to buy a ticket. Some buy more and don't win. Some buy none or none more than that one, and unfortunately win this lottery that you don't want to win. So I would say go back to those 4 pillars. Exercise appropriately, the 75 to 150 minutes. Make sure you're sleeping a good amount each night, 7 to 9 hours, and making sure those are good, efficient sleep hours. Making sure you're staying hydrated, and then making sure you're doing your best to kind of keep stress within control. And I think it boils down to the whole spinning plate analogy. You're kind of all trying to like spin plates and keep everything up, but sometimes some of them will fall. I think I'm going to switch that analogy actually to the juggling balls one. When you're juggling, sometimes you're juggling a glass ball and sometimes you're juggling a rubber ball. My job, I can bounce back from that. If I don't show up because a friend is in the hospital, like that'll bounce back. I can get another job or I can get my job. But if you mess things up with a loved one, or if you mess things up too much with your health, some of those don't bounce back. That's one of those glass balls that because you were juggling but missed that one and it shattered, you either can't get it back or it's going to take a lot longer to get back.
You know, I struggle with in the gym, and it's a mindset deal. Towards the end of a set, you know, you're doing 10 sets, you're at 9, you're really pushing. I struggle with the balance of do this last one so I don't feel like I'm soft, or do this last one, it might get me injured. Sometimes I toe that weird line.
Yeah. I have 2 different solutions. One, be willing to ask for a spotter or set up safety equipment to where that you can push if you want to, or work out in a way that you can dump it really easy. So if you're thinking of front squat, back squat, power clean, overhead press, pretty much anything other than a bench press, if you're in a place that you have rubber weights, so like Olympic style weights, you can just dump the weight. Like know how to safely fail. The second thing, though, is when it comes to weightlifting and building strength, your goal is to get within 2 to 3 reps of failure, and that will generally promote muscle growth. You don't always have to go to not being soft, like you said. I don't mean that passively, but there's times where you want to push it, and those times you may want someone to be with you to spot. But what I tell people is if you're doing 3 sets of 8, on most of those sets, you want to feel like you could have only done 10, but you stopped at 8. And so there's something called the RPE scale. It's the rate of perceived exertion. It's how hard is this for you? It's from 0 to 10. Generally, we only care about 6 to 10. So if I write you a thing and I say, let's do bench press, 200 pounds, 3 sets of 8, and we're going to do an RPE of 8. Each time you do that, which we would probably not do with that high number, but each time you do that set, I want it to feel like you only have 2 reps left in the tank. So 8 plus 2 is 10. If it's an RPE of 9, you have 1 rep left. And if it's an RPE of 10, you're like, that was my last rep. If you would have asked me to do it again, it would have crushed me. And so we generally want that RPE to be 7 or 8. That'll be hard enough to fatigue your muscle, to tell it to get stronger, but not so hard that you can't recover or you get injured. Now with that, what I like about the RPE scale is I know you're not feeling well right now. So your RPE is going to be higher at a lower weight. So when you did 200 pounds last week, but you don't feel great today, you may only do 180, but it feels the same hard. But on the flip side of that, if things feel really good, you better be pushing the weight. I've had days where I back squatted 300 pounds and I was like, why is this so easy? And other days I warm up and I get to 250 and I'm like, why is this so hard? It's like, cool, that's a day that you're pushing to your rate of perceived exertion. You're meeting your body where it's at. Back to here's how you prevent injury. In a way, listen to your body, give it what it can take, but don't always over push it. Sometimes it's suck it up, but not always.
Yeah. Why do you think so many people jump straight to surgery when there's other alternatives?
I think they jump to surgery, back to our medical discussion, because they're told that's the only option. That's where I think it really lies.
Such as financial gain?
I think it's a mix of financial, but also a lot of medical providers don't know any better. And when I compare our type of PT to other types of PT in Wichita, or the type of PT that I learned from while in school, I would turn my nose up at PT as well. Like when us three are getting the same exercises as a 74-year-old female next to us who can't stand up out of the chair, but we're doing the same exercises. I just told you I got done back squatting 250 pounds. Like, why are you giving me that exercise? You know, and then on your way out, you get the piece of paper that was photocopied every month since 1985 that says stretch your calves, stretch your hamstrings, stretch your quads, and you'll get better. It's like, I'm here for like low back pain. Like, why am I stretching out my legs? Like, I don't have a flexibility problem. I can palm the floor. Like, when that's the PT that the medical doctor sees, why would I refer to that PT? Like, PT doesn't do much. It's probably not going to help you. You can try PT is the way they say it, but we'll go ahead and give you this injection. And if it's still painful, we'll do an MRI. And if it's still painful, then we'll refer you to ortho. Like, that's the usual path for a lot of people. And so my goal, back to why I started posting on social media, is a lot of doctors I can't even get in front of because I'm not a part of their like thing, right? You have your doctors in the same place as your ortho, which is in the same place as PT, which is in the same place as blah, blah, blah. So they have to refer in-house. And so they wouldn't even talk to me. And even if they're willing to talk to me, it's, okay, buy my whole staff lunch and you can come in and tell us about your business. It's like, I'm not going to play that game. I'm sorry. So if I can go direct to consumer, right? Direct on people on TikTok and Instagram, say, hey, do you have this pain? Like, before you go to the doctor, try this exercise. And people are like, wow, that actually really helped. Like, yeah, you should go to a physical therapist and get evaluated. A clinical evaluation. Where does it hurt? Why does it hurt? When does it hurt? Where are you strong? Where are you weak? Where are you flexible? Where are you inflexible? What does your bench press look like? You know, what does your squat look like? What does it look like when you pick up your kids? There's why it hurts you. It's not because your disc is bulging or because you have arthritis in your back. It's because you lift like that. That's what you need to fix. That's what it usually boils down to in my eyes. But so many people think I need to go to the medical doctor. The medical doctor will tell me what to do. That medical doctor says you can do surgery. You can take oral medications, back to the Purdue Pharma. You can do an injection. Or you can try PT. Insurance tells us you have to do it. That was one thing that was actually really nice, is insurance generally requires 6 weeks of PT, but it's sold in such a bad way from the medical doctor a lot of the times. And then when they do go get PT, they get the 22 patients in a day type of PT. And then it's just like, well, yeah, I don't blame you for quitting PT type of thing.
Where do you see this field being in 20 or 30 years? You think there's going to be a lot more independent, non-insurance carriers like you?
Medical or PT? Which one?
Kind of both.
Yeah. I think
they work
PT's
sometimes hand in hand.
100%. Yeah. I think PT is definitely one of them that is going that way. My boss, the one who started Natural Wellness, he's a coach for a business called PT Biz, and he was the 6th person to join their mastermind. And this was in probably 2018 or 2019. They now have over 250 members in their mastermind. And they have a course, like a coaching program that they take people through called the Rainmaker. It's a 90-day coaching program to help people start a PT clinic like ours. They've helped over 1,000 now. And so it's happening relatively quickly, at least in the PT world. And they've even helped people in Canada. And I don't know if they directly worked with, but I know a lot of people in other countries and continents are also consuming their information and trying to like do better healthcare that way. And then I know I've seen more and more direct primary care clinics, which is your primary care physician. Direct means like no insurance. You pay them directly, fee for service. More and more of those are popping up. So I don't remember the time frame you said in 5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah, I said even longer, but who knows?
Yeah.
It could be changed in 10 years.
I think my ideal healthcare system would, instead of paying, I think we pay like $700 a month for insurance for just my wife and 2 daughters. Instead of paying them $700, I think what I would rather do is pay them $200 to $400, have a high deductible plan, and then have an HSA account. Yep. So this is actually how my wife and I did it. So we could pay like $1,000 a month for our health insurance, and a lot of stuff is covered, but we're guaranteed out of pocket $12,000 a year, whether we use it or not, right? Instead, we opted to pay $400 a month, have a high deductible plan, and we take $350 and put it into our HSA per month. So now we're out of pocket $750 per month, which is still saving us like $250 per month for the whole year. And so we're still up $3,000. Well, guess what? We're gonna have to use our HSA, and we have the high deductible, so we're gonna be out of pocket. But we're only gonna be spending that $12,000 if we actually need to use it. So if we don't meet our deductible, we actually saved money, as opposed to the plan that looks good because they pay for everything, but they're also costing you $12,000. So as long as you keep your spending down, it's actually better to choose the high deductible. And so I think we alluded to this too. The worse you make it, the more you force people to audit what they're doing, how they're spending, and how to make it work best for them. And so this really crappy situation, I think, is making more people look into, wait, why am I paying for insurance? Like, what do they pay for? Maybe I should like look at my own health. Maybe I should take my health serious. Maybe I should do something to make sure I don't spend all this money on my health in regards of like saving my life. And I should start making healthy choices on what I serve my kids for dinner, how well I cook my food, how I exercise, so that I can keep down the amount of spending out of pocket or with my HSA money in the medical system. And so I think there's going to be a lot of good that comes from this. It reminds me of the quote, strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And then here we go again, hard times create strong men. And I think we're going through that hard time that's hopefully going to create some strong people and a better climate ultimately in the future.
I'm sure there's plenty, but what are some of the primary medical myths you see today?
So I thought about this and I was thinking, what are things that you guys think are out there that I can tell you if it's a myth or not? Because way too many come to mind when it comes to like common myths. I will say, to start off with, if you guys can think of some, please bring them at me. Your knees should pass your toes in a squat as long as you have the ankle flexibility. They did a study and they actually put a board in line with someone's toe and they had them squat. So the knee could not go over their toes. It decreased the force on their knees by 22%. Increased the force on their back 1,070%. So when we leave here, if you have a mom, an aunt, a grandma, ask them to do a squat, or men for that matter too, but ask them to do a squat and they're going to look like they're doing a good morning. They're going to like, their butt will not even go down to a chair height and their chest will be faced at the floor. And they're like, yeah, my back's killing me. It's like, yeah, because every time you quote bend down to pick something up or squat, your knees are moving like not very much and your hips and back are taking out all that force. And so that's one that I see. And I even have some people that like, I quote, solve their problem in one visit just because I give them permission to let their knees go forward. And they're like, wow, that feels so much better. I'm like, yeah, do that one more.
I hear a lot of times for like a common man, deadlifting isn't a great idea. Fact or fiction?
If I were to set my backpack in front of you, how would you pick it up?
Well, I deadlift it pretty much.
Yeah. So it goes back to you're going to be doing this movement anyway, so you might as well train it. I think where a lot of this comes into like a problem is kind of like the whole, the dose is the poison. I remember I was working out and this kid next to me was actually hang cleaning more than me, but it was so atrocious. It was so ugly and so bad. And I was getting so angry. I was like, how in the world are you like hang cleaning 200 plus pounds when it looks like that? And I think at that age, we're just more resilient. You know, he's probably 17, but ultimately the problem is not the deadlift. It's how much are you deadlifting? Like how many times, how many reps, how much weight, how fast are you progressing? I think the hard part is most people have the leg strength to deadlift a lot of weight because they have the leg strength, but they don't have any idea how to hold that weight. See, when you go to deadlift something, your legs are pushing the ground down and that's what's making you stand up. But you have to have the grip strength, the upper back, and the like mid and lower back stability to hold that weight. So you have someone who can leg press 1,000 pounds. Well, that means they probably have the deadlift capabilities of moving some serious weight. But does their upper body, and where this all comes down to is like the low back, do they have the stability to actually hold that weight? And that's usually where the problem is. So I think deadlifting is our number one prescribed exercise, and it's how we help people with back pain.
What about static stretching versus taking a couple laps around the track as a warm-up?
Good question. Static stretching has not been shown to reduce injury really at all. And also static stretching prior to exercise, the majority of exercises is actually going to decrease your power and speed because you've now stretched out that muscle. And when it comes to power and speed, you want more elasticity, you want more bounce back. So you actually want to do more of a dynamic stretch or a warm up, kind of like you're alluding to with a couple laps around the track. I would say do something to get your heart rate up. So I always tell people to run, bike, row, backwards walk, some sort of cardio activity for 2 to 5 minutes to make their heart rate go from 60, 70 beats per minute to over 100. Maybe, yeah. I would still want you to do something physically active, right? Because sitting in a sauna will increase your temperature and stuff and probably your heart rate, but it doesn't really prep you for movement, right? So as long as you're still doing something else to prep for that movement. And then I would say 2 to 3 exercises to prep the muscle groups you're going to use. So you're not going to like do squats and lunges to prepare for bench, right?
Right.
But you'll do some air squats and lunges to prepare for your back squat. Same with bench press. Maybe do some pull aparts. I can send you guys guides if you want, but like some pull aparts, some pass throughs with the arms to get the shoulders warmed up. And then if you're going to bench press that
Like
day,
push-ups. Would
yeah,
those
that'd
work
be
for
another
that?
good one.
Yeah.
And then when you lay down on the bench press, start with the bar, then put on 25s, then put on 35s, then 45s, then work up to your weight, whatever that is for you, and then that should be totally fine. Usually, what I see is when people come in with some sort of pain, I will give them home exercises. I usually cap it at 3. I never give more than that unless there's like a special case. And I say, whatever you're doing for warm-ups, swap it with this, to where I'm not adding any time to your day. I'm just making you more efficient, focusing on the weaknesses that I found today. And then they're prepped for their movements.
I really enjoy, back to deadlifting, I really enjoy using a trap bar rather than a conventional
Same.
deadlift. Because I don't think my form is good enough for a conventional deadlift, and I think it's easier on my back.
For sure. If you don't, 2 things. One, if you don't know how to deadlift that well, trap bar is way better. Trap bar or hex bar, because they can be called both. It allows for you to not have to manage where the bar is, right? Because you can just bend down, grab it, and stand up. With a conventional bar or a straight bar, pulling it from the ground, you have to know where to keep your hips because that bar can't move through you. It has to be in front of you. So it has to like slide up your shins or be slightly off. And if you have a very long femur, which is your thigh bone, some people, they can't drop their hips as much as they're supposed to because as their hips go down, their long femur makes their knee go forward. When their knee goes forward, it pushes the bar away from them. So now they're deadlifting a bar that's like 6 inches in front of their toes. And so it's like, the barbell was not made for man. The barbell is just the barbell. And so certain people's body proportions are at a disadvantage when it comes to conventional deadlift with the straight bar. And so I would say for your amateur lifter, for somebody who just doesn't love conventional deadlift, or for somebody that's got a really long femur relative to the rest of their body, trap bar is a great way to go. Because ultimately you just want to load the system. You want to teach the body, here's how we lift heavy things. So when your buddy needs to move, you're ready for it. Like, you know how to lift a couch comfortably. You know how to carry a box comfortably. Like, that's what it's for, right? Like, train in the gym so that you're prepared for anything outside the gym.
Right.
And when you view it that way, it really changes how you work out and why you work out.
Man, you are sharp. How long have you had your show?
The Heal Without Harm podcast has been January 1 of last year. So 13 months.
Oh, that's similar to us.
Yeah.
it's
You
been
guys
a
didn't
couple
start too much
months.
after me, but I've been a physical therapist. June will make 6 years. And so that's where a lot of the redundancy of what I say and the practice of it all is. Most of the time what I talk about is just what I tell patients, and then it's just bringing you guys whatever information you want to hear.
Man, no, you're great. I really enjoy what you put online.
Thank you.
I've had a blast with this. I covered just about everything I wanted to. Do you have anything to, Ron? Clayton, you got anything for us?
No. If you guys want to learn more about this specifically, I would love for you guys to subscribe to the Heal Without Harm podcast and follow me on the socials. I really like puns. And so my name on all the social media is The Doctor, which sounds like the doctor. I am a doctor of physical therapy, not a physician, just to make that clear. But and then if you know anybody that needs help like us, please connect us ultimately, because
Where's your office at?
good question. So it's at Kellogg and Greenwich is our headquarters on the east side of Wichita. And then we have a second clinic inside Compelled Fitness, which is a CrossFit gym at Kellogg and Tyler. And so I'm there a day and a half each week so we can serve the west side of Wichita as well. Because we have some east siders that think Rock Road is too far west. And I'm like, that's what? Huh?
You know,
Not surprised.
I know.
I go to Wichita State games with a lifelong East Sider.
Yeah.
He says if you get past Woodlawn, you'll start seeing the mountains.
That's really funny. That's hilarious. I do enjoy the name Squinters. Have you guys heard that yet?
No.
Yeah, West Siders are squinters because we drive east into the sun for work, and then
Oh,
we drive west into the sun for work. And
That's
we're
actually
called
factual.
squinters. Yes, I know. Especially if it just rained and you're like, literally, the sun is in the sky and on the road. Like, I can't see anything.
Right.
It's pretty bad.
That is hilarious.
Yeah,
Well, Clayton, this has been great, man. Thank you for doing this.
for sure. Thank you guys for coming on, and I really enjoy yours. I've enjoyed listening to this podcast quite a bit. So thank you for guys. Thank
Awesome,
you guys
man.
for having me on.
Awesome.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
For sure.